Welcome.
Welcome back to Welcome back to our channel.
Welcome back to us.
Welcome back to us. This is about us. I'm Frazz.
I'm Redacted.
It's about us. You say your name now. Just kidding. Okay, so we're going to do one of our favorite things, which is read submissions of people that you hate.
And we have so much hate in our hearts that we have an unlimited amount of hate to give. So we are ready to fully hate whoever you hate.
Yes. We are supporters of your rights and your wrongs, and we hate everyone that you hate just as much as you do, if not more.
You don't need to apologize for anything. You've done nothing wrong.
Nope. You've never done anything wrong, actually.
Yeah, and it's all them, and you are a victim in this scenario.
We used to be teachers. Now we're not. But we're still here with you in the education world. We had a podcast. This is part of the Teacher Quit Talk multiverse. Cinematic universe.
Yes. And I am a traditional teacher. I am a substitute teacher. But because the children know I was a traditional teacher, sometimes they do make me teach them.
Disgusting.
No, did I tell you this actually happened the other day and I almost started crying? I emailed the kids' teacher, crying positive. So I was subbing for AP World.
Oh.
And I taught AP US. They use the same essay grading rubric.
Which is the
college board one. Not rubric, but scoring system. I'd be fucking cool if they could give us a rubric. Anyway, they do. It's just kind of not very student-friendly and complicated. So anyway, I'm subbing for AP World, and I always offer the kids, hey, if you need help with anything, let me know. Like, I'm happy to try and help you with your work if you have it. And this one kid told me that he has been really having a hard time with writing the essays for AP World and asked if we could have a writers conference and sat down with me. Again, no grade, no credit, teacher not even there. I never even offered. Sat down with me for 35 minutes and we read over his old essays and looked at it with a rubric that I did not make, but another teacher did that's really good. And he said it was like so helpful because the thing about AP writing, you don't have to write good. You have to write specific. Like you have to hit very specific points. And he was a good writer and had good things to say. He just wasn't formatting in a way to pick up the points. And it was actually such a heartwarming moment. And I was like, this is why I keep subbing, because it's like microdosing teaching. And it was so nice.
Yeah.
I emailed his teacher and I hope that he got extra credit.
I hope he did too. I love that so much. I mean, Redacted was literally beloved at this school.
Was?
Well, you are, but when you were a full-time teacher.
Yes. I go hard with children, mainly due to my wide spreading of granola bars and water.
Yeah, it really helps. We love a bribe. An incentive.
And they could not incentivize me to keep working for 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
So this is a hater time submission. Rural schools deserve better. I do not think we have read this one either. I'm ready. Hey, Frazz and Redacted, longtime listener of your podcast. I feel like I have to share this story with you. Sorry for all the grammar errors. I wanted to share my experience after seeing what Mr. Redacted went through last school year, since many of the traits of her admin matched with my program director. Setting the scene, last year I worked in a high school with seniors who apply to college, workforce, or military through AmeriCorps in a small town in the South. AmeriCorps, they will never get me to form a solid opinion about you. I was laid off, but the way the situation was handled is where I feel like rural schools get the short end of the stick. Since the program is run through AmeriCorps, I'm technically employed by a university to work at a high school where I was matched with a high school that is very similar, culturally speaking, to the one I attended. Everyone knowing each other, community support, just typical rural small town vibes. I feel like you're very familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I grew up suburban, so slightly different. While this was a great fit for me, I also knew it was going to present itself with unique challenges since our school district is small and I was in a program that is propped up by a school district for our state's largest city. I don't think I understand what that means, but okay. Basically, the year was normal for the most part. I had amazing admin, great relationships with students and parents, and was beginning to strongly consider school counseling as a full-time career. However, come April, one of my colleagues pointed out that we never got contracts for the next school year. After a few weeks of no updates, and especially as a new teacher, you don't know when those things come around. So when I taught in Miami, we did not get our contracts till sometimes a month into the school year because our union would still be negotiating. And y'all know me, I love a union. Miami Teachers Union, I'm begging you to get some teeth. Why is your starting pay $42,000 in Miami? So sometimes I wouldn't sign my contract till like September or October. So then in my new district, when we got our contracts in like March, that was very unfamiliar to me. So I can see if you just don't know. Because in my old district, it was like if you weren't coming back, you had to notify them by a certain time, which is how they could get away with our contracts. I'm still unclear as to why the contracts took so like because you didn't get us a raise. So what were you talking about?
Literally, hello?
Because it would always be like, we're fighting for you. And then 3 months late, they'd be like, so they won again.
They just keep winning.
Like, oh my God, they're really strong, you guys.
Oh my
God. Okay, so you did not get your contracts for next year. And this is in April, normal contract time. After a few weeks of no updates, our director, who is in charge of getting contracts ready and being in communication with our school districts and any upcoming changes, because I'm gathering this is a different type of school because you're like affiliated with a university, like something strange, not strange in a bad way, but just unique is happening here. So the director was asked about the lack of contracts, to which they offered to meet with us individually to discuss funding issues. Not what you want to hear. What you want to hear is be like, oh my God, that must be sitting in my drafts. I'm so sorry.
Something crazy happened, you guys. I don't even know.
I do want to point out that we were all sympathetic to their situation because it was a very sudden change and we did not know how our program was going to be affected by the federal government's actions towards AmeriCorps. However, and that's the thing, like I'll talk shit about some things in AmeriCorps and then when the federal government goes after it, I'm like, that is my son.
Exactly.
I'm like, you put the fucking Job Corps down.
I know. And what really pisses me off, sidebar, is that I'm going hard right now after Arizona's voucher program because it's just fucking trash. And I think that everybody should be outraged by it, even if they use it. Because like if there's like horrible things happening, like you should be like, hey, we need to fix that. I use that and I don't want everybody to hate it. Yeah. Anyways, people are like, oh, you don't criticize public schools. I'm like, are you sure?
Have you seen the crimes committed by some public school?
Are you sure?
Like,
no, but now that the administration is trying to take away public school, I'm like, hey.
That is my shitty public school.
That is my job. You shut up. I'm reforming public school. You're destroying it.
When I do it, it's from a growth mindset.
Exactly.
When you do it, it's gossip and mean.
Mean. So I'm like protecting it for my life because I'm like, yeah, it was sure 3 years ago I was talking a lot about how shitty the system is, but we can't just get rid of the entire system, you stupid idiots.
Because with AmeriCorps, I really love a lot of the missions of specific AmeriCorps, but with anything the federal government has done, sometimes it just gets done in very inequitable ways is my issue.
Exactly. Equity is always the fucking issue. People do not understand anything about anything.
That graphic of the fence.
Nobody calls us.
We get tattoos of the fence graphic.
Oh my God, that would be hilarious. Yes, what if we did like an artsy line drawing of it? That would be so fucking funny.
If there are any airbrush tattoo artists in the LA area that specialize in tramp stamps of equity focus.
The fact that I knew it was going to be a tramp stamp, I was like, it's going exactly above my butt crack.
Well, that's the perfect size.
Exactly.
Okay, so the way the position is funded is that the school district would pay half my salary while AmeriCorps would fund the other half. During my meeting, I remember being told specifically not to discuss these funding issues at my school. That's a red flag.
Yeah, no secrets, just surprises.
Seems normal until I was told by my colleagues that they were allowed to say something since they were going to be looking at jobs within their school districts. This allowed the school districts that were more connected with the program director to have more time to prepare for a situation where there is no government subsidy to help pay for our positions. This eventually allowed them to keep all their advising positions. Oh, I see what's happening. So your colleagues did say something to their bosses. So their bosses were like, let me see if I can fund this through maybe Title I or a grant or something like that. My old principal, who I loved, who would always go, let me go on a money hunt.
That's the attitude we need. Because for some reason, there's just money everywhere. We did an episode about that when we had a podcast.
Get a lot of Title I funding. And I've worked at 2 schools that both get a lot of Title I funding. And I saw the difference as a teacher was how admin handles that. Because at my other school, if I brought up Title I funding and like, hey, could we buy this? They would like be very no. And at my current school, it's not always a yes because there are a lot of rules, but like no one is ever upset at you for asking about literally anything. And like, I wanted some stuff off Teachers Pay Teachers, and they were like, let's see if we can use Title I, and then they couldn't. So then we like figured out other ways to get stuff. Like, yeah, stop being defensive over it if you're an administrator. Like, people don't understand it, and we literally just have questions.
I started quoting Arrested Development a lot and saying there's money in the banana stand and just expecting people to know what I'm saying. Instead of get in your bag, I also say that a lot about like, listen, there's money in the banana stand.
I wrote down a bit for a video yesterday, and I can't remember what the video was going to be, but the bit was that, like, you know, the meme from Arrested Development where she's like, Michael, it's a banana. What could it cost? $10. Now, if someone told me they paid $10 for a banana at like LAX, I would believe them.
Oh,
like,
100%.
That's not really a meme anymore.
No, it's literally not.
Because like when that meme happened, it was like, it was unfathomable that a banana could be $10,000 or $10.
Trillionaires. The first trillionaires are coming. And they have bananas that are $10,000.
I don't even like bananas, and I think they should be max $1.50.
Remember when my daughter unwrapped a banana yesterday and threw it in the trash?
That did piss me off because I had to overcome a lot of personal aversions to unwrap that banana for her. She did not unwrap a banana. She asked me to unwrap a banana. I unwrapped a banana. It got on my finger. I gave it to her. I was willing to fight through that because children deserve rights. And then she literally took, I'm not even going to call it a bite, a nibble, and then left. I didn't even think to ask. And you go, where did you put that? And she goes, the trash.
And she has never done that before, by the way. I don't want y'all to think that like my child is just throwing food in the trash. And that's like, she has never just been like, meh, and just thrown something away.
We have company? You mind if I act like an upper class child real quick?
The standard practice is we put it on the counter. We put it up there on the cutting board, and there's so many uses.
Recycled between other children.
We have so many other mouths.
Okay, so this person, you were told not to discuss money, so you didn't, so then they couldn't make a game plan about your money, which is horrible. Since I was not allowed to say anything, my school was being denied time to figure out how to budget with this information, because I guess the other people at other schools were like, hey, just a heads up. One solution that was being discussed was hiring me on as full-time rather than as a contractor or through the university. Exactly what I was saying. Mm-hmm. Of course, I decided to go ahead and tell someone in my school because this impacts not only my job, but the jobs of others in the counseling department who would be expected to take on the task that I was responsible for, and the students I served as I was already building relationships with the class of 2026. Several weeks later, during my end-of-year eval with the program director, we had a very tense conversation about the funding situation and other areas that I felt like the needs of my school were being ignored. And then they started accusing me of being unprofessional and supposedly grilling them about the funding issues and claimed I second-guessed their judgment since I was asked several weeks earlier about it when my district was going to be informed about the funding issues. When I pointed out how it was unfair that my colleagues could say something about the funding issues to their schools, but I was not allowed to, I was just met with more claims of unprofessionalism and excuses about how it's not the same thing because I wasn't applying for a job within my school district, which I never said I wouldn't do if I needed to find a new job. I was actively looking at the district's job page at the time. I should have seen the writing on the wall then. Going into summer, I still had no update about my job. Oh, and it's summer. Maybe there is no job.
We have something to tell you. You may have already figured it out, dear submitter.
Eventually, a member of the school staff reached out to me to see if I had an update, and this would escalate to the principal calling me in the middle of July to see if I knew anything about the position next year and if I knew how much it would cost the district. This is where I felt like my school was getting the short end of the stick. Since I was in a rural school in a district that had a small student population, our budget was small. I believe it was the smallest in the entire Corps. Okay, so AmeriCorps is sending you out to different places. And it's also why sometimes I have issue with AmeriCorps. They just send you anywhere. And therefore, when there was a change in the cost of the service, it was something they needed time to plan for. So hearing that my school did not even have an estimated cost was a massive red flag to me. I reached out to the director to see if there were any updates, and when I finally told her the director will contact my district, and based on that would have to make a decision. In the middle of July, roughly 2 weeks before the school year began, they were going to charge my district double to continue my contract, and my school district was not able to afford this sudden increase in price. While the change in cost is not the director's responsibility, I found it troubling that this new figure was known since May and could have been shared with my district as a worst-case scenario rather than waiting until after the school budget got approved by the Board of Education. This is what we're saying when we say that, like, yes, schools are underfunded and have problems, but, like, I'm not going to sit up here and be like, and everyone working in the school is great at their job and doing an awesome thing. Like, this could have been handled with communication, and people either out of negligence or malicious intent chose to not communicate that. I was the only employee of the 11 who wanted to return that was laid off over the summer. I was also the only one serving a primarily rural community. When I went to the school to clean out my office, the principal asked me in a passing remark how often I was updated about my job over the summer. That was when I learned that my district was completely in the dark about my position from the moment they met with my director in early June to when they got the update in the middle of July. This is one thing I hate about education, is that people who work in offices and don't interact with children do not understand the way their decisions affect them. I understand if you have some fuck-ass office job, you can toss a position up in the air for 2 months about, are we going, I don't know, some needs, blah, blah. As someone who's had a fuck-ass office job, yeah, toss around a position for 2 months. Who gives a fuck? But when it's a position that serves children, one change is felt by hundreds of children. And that's one thing I have not seen education leaders. I've seen some of them in the building. Some administrators who are in the building feel this and move with this energy. But the vast majority of district people, like government people, agency people, do not realize that them sending an email affects the lives of thousands of children. And I don't think you need to be thinking about that 24/7 and torture yourself, but like, you should think about it sometimes, probably.
No, absolutely.
During the aftermath, I was presented with an option of moving to a neighboring district, but I would have to go through the interview process again. What was weird about that is the director was pointing out that I was already going to be a drive for me because I was commuting an hour on the last school year, and the other school was also an hour away in a different direction. While I didn't think about it at the time, I'm realizing this might have just been a ploy to get me to resign immediately, because I came to find out there was an opening at a school 10 minutes from me that was able to secure a contract with my program, but the director did not even consider me for that position. I also found out that the director had no problem talking about the people they supervise behind our backs, and they were shading me during one of the colleagues' end-of-year evaluation because I provided feedback that they thought was rude. I will admit I struggle with tone when I speak, but when I showed school personnel what I wrote, they didn't think I was being harsh at all, and I was raising valid concerns about the program. This was an example that happened to me, but I've heard of at least 2 other instances of this happening. I'm so excited the high school is able to hire me to work a couple days this school year, and I get to continue working with an amazing admin and counseling team. I get to continue working with an amazing admin and counseling team that trusts me to do my job. I'm also glad that I don't have to report to a supervisor that didn't care for someone who advocated for the needs of rural communities. This is a special subject matter to me because I face similar structural issues a lot during high school, where my district prioritized parking lots and wealthy suburban schools over adding CTAE, which is like career tech art.
CTAE is career technical
Agricultural education, maybe? Oh, so it always just goes back to not treating teachers as human and just having an open and honest conversation about a job.
Yeah.
Like, this was all smoke and mirrors. You can't say this, don't talk to them. And that's what education is. When you should have just sat down, not you, because this isn't your problem, but what should have happened is the district, your program, and you should have sat down and be like, here's a situation. Let's all talk about what makes most sense to move forward here, which it sounds like kind of happened for your people who weren't in a rural school.
Yeah.
I'm so excited the high school was able to hire me to work a couple days this school year, and I get to continue working with amazing admin and counseling team that trusts me to do my job. I'm also glad that I don't have to report to a supervisor who didn't care for someone who advocated for the needs of rural communities. This is a really special subject matter to me because I faced a similar structural issue during high school where my district prioritized lots of a wealthy suburban school over adding CTAE. So I Googled CTAE. I found 2 different definitions, but both sound roughly the same. Career, technical, and agricultural education.
And that's in Georgia high school.
Oh, because I just found another one for Florida that says career, technical, and adult education.
You know what really pisses me off is that people bitch about us not having federal, we don't want federal oversight of education. We don't want it. Tell me why we have the same fucking acronym that means 2 different things in 2 different states.
Rough. We were talking about that on our show recently because we asked a teacher, like, oh, what do you teach? Because she had a question, like, live. And she said, like, 4 acronyms.
Yeah, that stresses me out. I remember starting...
I literally looked at the audience. I was like, you don't know what that is?
I remember being in teaching school and being like, there are so many fucking acronyms. I was like feeling like I was starting like law. I was like, why do I not know what you're talking about?
One win for corporate America. The company that I worked at was a very acronym heavy company. And so they made this thing that's kind of like they present it as a joke, but it is serious that you get an acronym Bible on your first day.
They really should do that.
And it was very helpful.
Yes.
Especially working in real estate, a lot of acronyms, a lot of legal things. You don't want to fuck something like that up.
Yeah, and that's because I taught inclusion. So special education is like acronym city. And there's some acronyms that you can't say like the word or it's considered offensive. So like if you in some
SPED is no longer offensive. I heard people saying it and I was like, oh.
No, I remember when I went to teaching school and I heard somebody say SPED for the first time and I was like, oh, they were saying that about me in school and that was really, really mean.
I had same thing, like 90s to early 2000s. That would be like a slur directed at a person.
Right. And then, it's said, and then it's very normalized, by the way. Like that's like, because you're talking about the type of education, you would never, ever use it as a person. Well, whatever. Like I just never even like thought of like whatever. When I started getting on the internet, I would see people say it and then they would be called out for it being like an ableist term. But I'm telling you guys, like
we're not on the same page acronym wise as an industry.
We are not. And you know what? I am sitting on a video right now, Redacted, that I don't even want to finish editing because I was feeling very brave the day that I recorded it. But I will say it now. Charter schools are different in every single state. Requirements of charter schools are different in every single state. So like when people are online fighting, they will be so passionately fighting about what their state or their area does for charter schools. And they're both correct. You're both right. Yes. But because like a charter school in California and New York are so differently managed, created, and like everything about it is different. So when I posted on Threads, because sometimes I post on Threads to like check how things are going to go, like a little temperature check before I post a video. Me too. I hate Threads. It's the worst social media platform after Twitter. Twitter doesn't like me because they've decided that I'm Jewish and they've decided that they hate me. So they're psychos. Thank you, Elon Musk, for bullying me on Maine. So I posted on Threads and people were fighting and I had to come back and say, friends, not one of you has said something that is universally true about charter schools. You were both correct. And they responded to it being like, well, actually, and I was like, so this is the whole point of the fucking thread. This is what I'm saying to you. Like it's different everywhere. But we need to have like that acronym. That acronym should be the same nationwide. Alas, it is not. Anyways.
It's like not even a niche acronym.
It's not. It's a big ass deal.
I don't know if this is true, but one time when a professor was talking about languages, they talked about how like some languages have multiple words for snow. And then like most languages in like warmer regions don't have a word for snow.
Yeah.
Maybe they have one. That's what's happening in education.
Yes, exactly. Okay, keep going.
This one was almost done. There are many other issues that rural students face when it comes to accessing higher education, but at this point, I'm starting small with hopefully securing my first full-time contract with the school district next year. Thank you for bringing up issues regarding education to the forefront of people's minds. I'm grateful to have found your podcast while working at a public school. Wishing you the best. And I think this is a really good example of like, yes, we talk about teachers, but this person is not a teacher in the traditional sense. It sounds like they were doing a little more counseling stuff, but like, the toxicity in the culture of education that goes back to controlling women affects all people, affects all positions, because ultimately the problem here, in my opinion, is that important decisions about you and your students were being made without you in the room and without you being communicated to about those decisions, which is very much how society treats women. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if you're a woman, but that's the thing. Like, it's kind of like, I'll use voting as an example. Like, even if you're a white voter and you live in a predominantly Black area, you might still be victim to like race-based voter suppression by like proximity.
Yes.
Because like voter suppression, generally they go after predominantly Black areas.
Yeah, of course.
And like, that's going to affect, not that it would be okay if it only affected certain people, but like even everyone in that area is going to be affected. Kind of the same thing, even men in education, even people that are not educators or teachers in the traditional sense in education. are deeply harmed by the way our employment is handled. And ultimately, we are not handled as professionals with agency over our careers. Yeah, that's what it is to me. And that's honestly why I didn't sign my contract and I'm subbing now, is because I wasn't being given any agency over my career. Like, I was not able to make decisions about my career. I was not able to express goals about my career. I was not able to express like where I saw myself going. It was just very much at the whim of other people, which that is kind of the name of the game. It's education. Things change, students change, numbers change. But I think it's all about like who's included in that conversation. And ultimately, usually the teachers and students aren't, because we're women and children and everyone hates us.
No, that's a really good point. And I think it reminds me of like the curb cut theory. Is it called the curb cut theory? Hang on. Effect. Yeah. Okay. So the curb cut effect is where for the disabled community, if you're a wheelchair user, you're going to know all the time, like if there's a curb cut to make it, the little part of the curb that goes down like this.
Yes.
So a lot of times mothers are the first ones who figure out, oh my God, what do people who have like use wheelchairs do? What do they do? Because you have a stroller and you're like, what the fuck?
They're like unramped our society is.
Yes. So it's the idea that like something that once affects a vulnerable, smaller population, once it affects a larger population, a lot of times that's when we see change happening. And we're seeing it now, I think, with like ICE. Like in LA, like a lot of my students have not had papers and it's not really been a big deal, except for the fact that we fucking hate ICE like forever. Fuck ICE since 2003, you know? But a lot of other people, now that white people are being affected, they're like, oh, this is crazy. And I'm like, I know it's crazy. It's horrible.
Welcome to the conversation.
So the same thing with like voter suppression, now that even like the SAVE Act is becoming a conversation, which is not going to pass the Senate. It doesn't have the votes. They're not going to get rid of the filibuster. Like, do not panic. But because there's a lot of content right now suggesting that you panic, but they do not have the votes, and Republicans are never, ever, ever going to get rid of the filibuster, because the second they lose, they love the fucking filibuster, you guys. They love it. Trump is like, I'm not going to pass any legislation unless we pass the SAVE Act. Okay, he's fine. He's a senile old man.
Criminal to say.
I will say even T is that apparently behind the scenes in... T is that Republicans get off the floor and they're like, this man is fucking crazy behind closed doors. And then they get on the floor and they act way more blown out.
Dementia.
Yeah. So anyways, all that said.
Those shades to the dementia community, but I don't think you should be allowed to run for public office.
Right.
I will say that.
Right. So there has been voters have been disenfranchised, and there's been voter suppression of the Black community for like a tale as old as time, right? Now that like white people are being affected, exactly what you said, people are like, oh my God.
They're coming together.
And this is like the same thing with women in fields. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, nursing is another big one.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of, now that we're in our new universe where we can talk about anything we want, we should have a nurse come on as a guest.
I got one.
And then talk about like the parallels between nursing and teaching, of like the contracts not being in control, threatening your license if you quit, the glass escalator. Like, there's a lot of parallels there.
Yes. And like what really pisses me off is that not only are politicians always promising things to educators and teachers that they do not deliver on, like it's really frustrating that they campaign on things that don't end up being delivered. But also, now that we have this literal like fascist regime rising, or they hath risen, let's be honest, they are attacking education just as like they're just dismantling. They are destroying a lot of female dominated fields. Yeah. And it really fucking pisses me off, because it's like, come on, like we need somebody who gives a shit about public education to not only campaign on it, but to like make shit happen. And we've had that a few times, and we have people who are like in positions of power that have been elected that can do things, but like it's really frustrating to be like in these female dominated fields, and it does affect everyone. Because this was a man, no?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Wire?
No, but I've been told to watch.
So there's one season of The Wire that I wouldn't say focuses on schools, but a school is a big place in the show. Multiple characters, you see them at the school. It's like a major, so I guess, yeah, it does focus on the school. And one thing that I wouldn't call it educational, but one thing that I noticed that The Wire did very, very well was capturing the way that politicians talk about schools behind closed doors. Because you see the school in the day-to-day, but like none of the teachers there's the main characters you see are the children, and it's not really about their schooling, but you see the school and like the neighborhood and et cetera, et cetera. The Wire's a great show. Please watch it. I'm explaining it really bad. But one thing I really like that show did is they show like the mayor's office at the various campaigning that people are doing. And this guy's like, well, I'm going to run as the education mayor. And to just see it talked about so callously and like without any actual teeth or plan. And then to see the people that like politically were like, oh, and we support our schools. I think The Wire did a great job of showing the reality of the way that the politicians talk about the school versus what's happening inside of the school.
Yeah.
Because God, it's such a good show. You really should watch it.
I will.
There's like one thing that I think is really emblematic. And again, like it's a television show. It's not a documentary. But there's one thing that I think is really emblematic in it that I like actually had to pause it and take a break because I was like getting too upset is that they're running this like pilot program in the school for like the kids that are really struggling to thrive in a classroom environment. They put them in a different environment and it's like working phenomenally. But then the like district, I think, because of standardized testing, like shuts it down and is like, no, you have to take them out and do standardized testing, even though they had made so much progress with these kids. Because what they did in The Wire, that same shit that has happened in real life, it was like older middle schoolers. And they were basically like, you're having such a hard time socially and emotionally in this environment. And you're so behind academically that you're struggling in this environment. So let's move you to an environment where that's all that we do.
Yeah.
So then the government was like, you're not doing 90 minutes of math per day for the standardized test. And like, that's what good television does, is clearly that this lays out things that happen in real life in a more obvious way.
I will never forget the first year that I was teaching, they handed us our minutes for how many minutes we're supposed to teach each subject. And I was like, that doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the day. It doesn't fit in the week. And they were like, oh yeah, well, you're supposed to do 90 minutes of ELA every day, but actually science is kind of ELA. Social studies also, we don't actually, at that school, they were like, we don't officially do social studies. We use this English curriculum that is very historically based. So you just put those minutes into ELA. And I was like, huh? I mean, it was like weird, but it doesn't fit.
A little bit on a tangent here, but this is something I'm really passionate about. We've done an episode about this with the social studies education. Yeah. I think it is possible. I'm kind of my Naomi O'Brien vibe. I think it is possible to learn historical knowledge through ELA. I do not think it is possible to teach historical skills through ELA. The same way children need explicit instruction in phonics, they will not just figure it out. You have to explicitly teach them. You have to explicitly teach them about cause and effect and change over time. Yeah, that is not a skill that children are innately born with, being able to see cause and effect and change over time. That is a skill you have to teach. And if you look at what a lot of people in this country say politically and believe politically, that knowledge gap is absolutely there.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
It's like someone designed it that way.
T. So I really appreciate how this episode has turned into things that we hate.
Yeah.
Hater time.
That was one submission, but a lot of opportunities for hate in it, which I appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will say we are a little barren on submissions for hater time.
Yeah.
If you hate someone or something, please email it to this place. Myles will put it there for us. Myles, you can leave your name in if you don't care. I mean, I love talking about things. Right there. Nope, not that way. Right there, baby.
And it does not have to be school related. If you hate your boss, feel free to bring that up. Please. If you hate something that your friend's husband did, let us know. So like one thing that I think would be right for hater time, I should actually tell him to submit this. My father recently is in a fight with his local sanitation because, you know, the garbage machine that dumps it? Yeah. It let go of his garbage can into the garbage, and it took him a month and a half to get a new garbage can through dealing with the city government.
The fact that the city threw away his entire garbage can and was like, that's your fucking problem. Like
my parents live at the bottom of a hill, so he said he was just looking up the hill and watched it happen and was like, oh, But it's such very long hill, so he couldn't do anything about it. And he said they just drove away.
And if that isn't a metaphor.
And so, like, if something like that happened to you, tell us about it.
I want to know.
Because every horrible thing that's happened to any of you is interconnected into the web of the universe, and we will be ready to analyze that.
We are ready. So anyways, please like, subscribe, share, follow both of us because we love you so much. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye, Pookie Pies.